The Board of Trustees regularly scheduled meeting for the Public Defender Services Corporation will be called to order. Will the secretary please call roll?
Thank you, Your Honor. Chief Justice Robert J. Torres,
I'm present.
Presiding Judge Alberto C. Lamarena III,
PJ, can you hear us? You're muted, PJ.
I'm present.
thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Christiana Whitman,
Present.
Trustee Donna Muñoz-Canata,
Donna's not on right now. Hopefully she'll join us later.
and Guam Bar President Jackie T. Terlahi.
And Jackie is also not present, but we do have a quorum. 3 of the 5 members are present. Notice of the meeting was published in the PDN on June 20th and June 25th, complying with the open government law. The first matter on the agenda that warrants board action is the approval of the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting of April 25th, 2023. Can I entertain a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve subject to correction.
I second that motion.
All right, it's been moved by presiding judge, seconded by trustee Whitman. All those in favor of approving the minutes, subject to correction, say aye.
Aye.
There being no objection, the minutes are approved. We're now under old business under the agenda. And of course, since we last met, we did not have a meeting in May. We, of course, an event happened between our last meeting and this meeting, and I'm sure that event will come through in the old business when we hear from the executive director. But we'll start with the financial status update and the allotment releases.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good afternoon to the board. The Department of Administration has been on schedule on our allotment releases. We have received our second June allotment release on June 20th, and PDSC is at 97%, while APD is at 98%. We have received the reimbursements for the JAG, access to council grants expenditures up to March 2023. Of the grant amount of $26,658, a total of $20,192 have been received to date. The invoice for the quarter ending in June will be submitted in July as part of the required quarterly reports. Now moving on to the TAC and others, STOP and ICJR. At present, there are 3 funding sources for the domestic violence programs. We are presently using the funding from STOP 2020 and STOP 2021, which have balances of $100 and $11,800 respectively. STOP 2020's balance is scheduled to be expended within this month. STOP 2021 has an expiration date of June 2023, and an extension request has been submitted. The third funding from is from the ICJR grant with a balance as of May 31st, 2023 of $88,791. This will be utilized after STOP 2021 has been exhausted. It is projected that the total balance may not be expended by the expiration date of September 2023. Therefore, an extension request has also been submitted, and we are still waiting for a response for both STOP 2021 and ICJR from the governor's office. For the Elder Justice Center, for fiscal year 2023, as of today, we have received full payments invoiced for October 2022 to March 2023. Payments for invoices for the months of April and May are still outstanding. We are in constant communication with the Department of Public Health regarding the reimbursements for the April and May. That concludes the financial reports. If anybody has any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Mike? Mike, I noticed that you indicated the STOP 21 was expiring in June 23.
Yes, sir.
That's literally 3 or 4 days away. So Um,
We have been in communication with the GCO FPO and on a daily basis by email. And the last response was they're still trying to get approval from the VAW, the Violence Against Women office. We will follow.
yeah, I mean, do we have a plan in place in case we do not get an extension? I mean, how much?
Yes. The
Okay.
the ICJR grant funding will kick into place.
Right, but will we just lose the balance of those funds? We're not going to be able to utilize them?
What I'm feeling from the response from GCO FPO is they will be approving it. How soon, they cannot guarantee how soon, but they are in the process of getting the approval for the extension.
Well, hopefully they will allow us to extend, especially considering, the fact that we were hit by the typhoon and
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's one of the,
without water and power. So,
yeah.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions about a financial status? If not, we'll move to the next item on the agenda and hear from the PDSC Executive Director.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad we have the internet to get us all together like this. But anyways, so on page, what is this? 12 out of 60 of our budget packet. Those are our main numbers. For the month, we had 85 cases received by the office. Year to date, we have 765. Our total pre-trial case number is of 1,876, and these include bench warrants as well. I mean, and then we have it broken down by attorney and the type of case: felony, misdemeanor, and juveniles. But if you look at, we have them by attorneys, right? But if you look under other, right, there's like a 374. So what that other means is we call them ghost attorneys. They're outstanding warrants, and they'll get reassigned once they get picked up and get assigned to an attorney that's currently with the office. So 374. A lot of these are like from when I was a public defender back in 1998. So I mean, these are decades worth of bench warrants. And so if you look at our other chart here, just for comparison, right? FY 2023, if you notice, like, we've already moved to withdraw from 36 cases due to the income guidelines. 2022, we withdrew from 34 cases. Same in 2021. I'm not sure what happened in 2020. So there are many, like, basically lower middle class people that are, because of the our low guidelines, we have been unable to provide service. So we are going to obviously address that later on in the board meeting packet. We have this new stat. I don't know how we're going to try to get it more accurate. We started noting the dates that we changed the case from pre to post, resolved it through a plea, trial, or dismissal, or however. And so that's that little table on the right side. We're trying to make it consistent with the time standards, right? So it appears like 35% have not been resolved in 13 or more months. So there are some cases that we do need to resolve, but looks good. 48% are resolved within 6 months. And so we believe these numbers will become more accurate as we move forward, because we just started keeping track of them, I think, in sometime late last year. It was a new stat that we decided to keep. But other than that, I mean, we all kind of fared well through the typhoon. The courts got up and running, and we were ready to help the court in any way we can. I know there was a little breather, but I think everyone seems to be up to speed. There have been numerous trials going on since the typhoon, so Guam's pretty resilient. Our jurors are like incredibly patient. And so our office, we didn't really sustain any damage other than our generator was not working for the first few weeks afterwards. APD, I'm sure Annie's going to share with you everything that they've gone through, and we've tried to help them as much as we can. So right now they're actually working out of part of our office, and they have like a temporary office, container office that is also housing some of their staff. But as far as just the report for this month, that's all I have. We have information for later on in the board meeting.
All
Thank
right. Steve, do you have an existing continuity of operations plan, a COOP plan in place for PDSC?
I know that's something we had, we don't really have a formal one. It's just like everyone seems to know how to, move forward after the pandemic and now this latest typhoon. But yeah, you're right. We don't actually have a written continuity of. It's just me and John will just come to work every day, right, John? And
Yeah, but
see
I
where we need
think
to go.
we should probably consider and get maybe a small group together to start looking at devising one for Public Defender Service Corporation. Obviously the court learned some valuable lessons. We thought we were very well prepared and had things in order, but we learned some things with this storm that I think, and every one of our managers had to come up with an after action report and some of the issues that we faced. And you pointed out the generator not working for the first few weeks. I mean, what was the cause of that?
Well, that one, part of it was no fuel, and there was some a tree fell that was blocking the refueling. And then I think our landlord was off island for a while. But I don't think there was anything wrong with the generator. It just didn't kick in automatically. And so it caused some security issues. But I mean, we came through okay. I feel bad for APD. They're the ones that really suffered. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree. We need something where like when something like this happens, there's like an office that's secured for us, the AGs and the court, right? So we're all close to each other and we can you know, do our work and with power and stuff. Because I know that the AGs had an office at the airport really quickly, right?
Yeah, my understanding is that the Attorney General's office suffered damage and they were unable to continue operations in their current location and had to set up a temporary office at the airport that provided them with water and power and internet access. And of course, we had the magistrates that we had to do, relatively quickly after the storm. Once it became safe to do so, and we were able to, run with power, although, there's been some talk that we could have done some of those things manually. So I do think that it would be good to get an after action report and including, examination of the interaction with the judiciary, some of the recommendations that you feel need to be implemented. And I think we should also look to perhaps adopt before the end of the year a continuity of operations report. In some respects, we really dodged a big typhoon, even though we got hit directly. And if it had tracked the way it was originally tracking, the damage might have been significantly worse than what we experienced. And none of us, obviously felt that it was a small typhoon. This clearly was not a banana typhoon, but by the same token, we did not get that direct hit that we thought we were having, and it moved a little bit more to the north that we didn't perhaps sustain as much damage as we can. But I think that we realize there are some flaws and some vulnerabilities that we have as organizations, judiciary, the public defenders. And I think it would be helpful and productive for the PDSC to put together an after action report and start to work on drafting a COOP plan. The same with the judiciary. We're doing that as well. We've worked on COOP plans, but never really formalized anything. And I think it's just important to have, you say you and John will just show up to work every day, but that may not be the case, something could prevent you from getting there, and we need to know that the staff needs to know, and I think it'll be helpful for us.
No, that's a great idea. We need to work on that. Thanks.
Any questions from PD? If not, let's go to APD and hear the somber news.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. We did put on page 14, our stats for May. We did hire a new person, Mr. Tyler Scott, and we keep teasing him that he brought the typhoon with him because he started right before the typhoon. But anyway, he's a lawyer from Saipan, and we got him all sworn in. Thank you so much for accommodating us, Your Honor.
Actually from Kentucky.
Right, he's from Kentucky by way of Saipan. Anyway, these are the stats that we had for up to May. We have 190 cases so far, and we've closed about 95. The stats are self-explanatory. I'd like to just kind of gloss over it real quick because I have a lot more to talk about regarding Typhoon Mawar. If there's any questions, I could, of course, answer them regarding our stats. But as far as Typhoon Mawar is concerned, may I go on, Your Honor?
Yes, one thing I think it might be helpful, Annie, is also looking at an aging of the cases. For the
Okay,
next
like
time.
like
Yeah.
Mr. Hattori has.
Yeah, I
okay.
mean, I think it's good to have the aging and also just to look at it in comparison to the judiciary's time standards as well. It's one of the
Okay,
things
we'll
we have to reexamine,
we'll
so I
talk,
think it
we'll
would be
put
helpful.
that in.
But yes, you can go on to the Typhoon Marwar report.
I have Mrs. Hattori here as well. I'll see if she can see you. But anyway, if I have we have questions, Mrs. Hattori was my chief operating officer while I was off island. So APD got wiped out by the typhoon. We had over a foot of water in our office. We've had to move out, and at this point in time, we've had to store things over at an office. We've had to store our big files over in the courts storage area that's up here by the public defender's office. Thank you to your AOC. She was very quick in helping us get all that together. We've had to get rid of all our furniture, most of our furniture, because they were water damaged and mold damaged. So far, we have over $17,000 in expenses that we've expended. I'll have a detailed report for you probably by the next board meeting, Your Honor. But at this point in time, we have decided to clean the office in terms of leaving the carpet and having it cleaned but professionally. And it should be done this week. We'll be able to move back into our office.
You froze, Ms. Gill.
Have helped with the recovery. Everybody was hands on deck for the recovery operation. We do have a mobile office that's in front of our current office, which we call the APD MO, the mobile office, and we are able to continue with operations in terms of meeting the demands of going to court and filing motions. Public defender has been able to set us up here in their office in the back, and we're very thankful to them for that. Although we want to get back into our office, but we do have 4 stations that we've been able to use for Zoom hearings and work, and as well as workstations. So as Mr. Hattori stated, we did have trials go on during the during the aftermath of Typhoon Mawar, and so life goes on. The judiciary didn't stop, so we didn't stop either. We did have a little break, but not much. Anything else? Yeah, so other than that, Your Honor, we are on the road to recovery. I do believe that a continuity of operations plan is needed. And it was quite obvious that we all need one. We will probably have some recommendations for our office, as well as what we believe could be better. We can be better prepared, but also I do have some recommendations for the court. We had some issues, nothing major. We were able to on WhatsApp, your clerks at the court were able to give us more information on different things. It was just sometimes it was just hard to figure out what was on what was on schedule versus what was not on schedule, and that we just needed individual information from the different clerks, and they were actually able to give us more information once we got them on WhatsApp. Let's see what else. I think that's it for now, Your Honor. I will have a detailed and updated report regarding what we'll need for continued operations in terms of replacing desks and cubicles and whatnot that we lost from the storm. Thank you.
Are you seeking any assistance? Obviously, I mean, you didn't have insurance, right? There was no insurance.
Well, we didn't have insurance.
Yeah. So have you tried to get any FEMA applications? Grant?
Kathy Moreland is assisting us in trying to contact FEMA and see how they could help us with that. That's why we are keeping an expense ledger of what we're replacing.
Yeah.
Whereas an
I think you should jump on that right away. I mean,
Mhm.
we also sustain damages, and we're trying to get, apply for aid that might be available for the damage that was sustained. And, there were significant damages that were caused at different locations. So we were, I definitely would do that. And then I think working on your COOP plan and an after action report on, what happened, so that you can get better prepared for the next time. And then also what occurs subsequent, that I think there are valuable lessons we learned and can be avoided. What was the major cause of the flooding? Was there any mitigation measures or remedial measures that could have been done to have prevented?
I think so. We have always had a problem with our with the parking lot. There's one drain, and it always gets backed up. And I don't know if you were on social media, but we're in front of the Sinahanya Payless, Your Honor. And I don't know if you saw that video, that picture of just the whole street was filled, and our parking lot got filled, and there was no place for the water to go. So it came into our office. Our office has got the most damage out of all the offices up here. And I believe they could have perhaps done a better job if we had all, I mean, we all know that we didn't know how bad the typhoon was going to be, but we've seen our parking lot fill up when it's not even typhoon weather. It's just a bad, a bad rain. And
And you knew that there was going to be significant rainfall with this one in advance. So
our landlords were off island. Everybody was off island, unfortunately. And we did know about our generator issue before the storm. There was an issue with there was a diesel leak. So they knew about that as well. So there's a lot of issues that unfortunately they could have been mitigated.
well, now you have the checklist for the next time to start working on, and you have the after action items and the preparations.
Could I ask you, Your Honor, who's working on your FEMA? Is that the AOC?
You can consult with Danielle and with our Director of Policy and Planning, Sarah.
Okay.
And also our Finance Administrator, Diane Goodmullen.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor, because your AOC was very helpful to us. I really would like to say thank you to your AOC for helping us.
All right, thank you,
Your Honor.
Annie.
I can't hear you, CJ.
We're gonna go to the next item on the agenda,
No,
which is,
may I just make a comment on?
oh, yes.
I'd like to thank Annie and the attorneys at Ultimate Public Defender. Despite all the obstacles that they were facing, they were still able to make their court appearances and represent their clients in front of all the courtrooms. And I thank them for making an effort to make sure that their clients had legal representation on Tuesday and subsequently after that. So kudos to Annie, and the APD attorneys and staff.
Thank you, Your
Okay.
Honor.
No problem.
And
I
thank
didn't
you for not
realize how
getting-
bad, I didn't realize how severe your problem was until you told me on Tuesday after our court hearing. And I asked you, how did you do the typhoon? He says, we have over a knee foot of water in our offices, but you were still able to come to court and represent your client. So I like to give kudos to you and your attorneys and staff.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. And thank you for not getting mad at me for coming in tennis shoes and leggings.
Well, after you told me what happened to you, I was surprised you even showed up.
Oh, we're more scared of you than we are the typhoon, Your Honor. Hello.
All right, thank you, PJ. CLC Managing Attorney report, please.
Our stats are provided on pages 16 through 18. 16 incorporates our Civil Law Center, which is just the civil cases that qualify. And then the elderly justice is from pages 16 and 17. As you can see, we continue to meet the mandates required under EJC with respect to the numbers per month. And we've exceeded it. And we continue to also look into what other services are being requested of. I know we just had a team meeting, so we're trying to improve the processes we have, as well as the intake sheets to consolidate it and simplify things. And then we're also trying to develop a needs assessment that's user-friendly to the individuals, like checklists. So, because when you ask them a question, sometimes they don't necessarily know offhand what they want because they don't know the exact service. But if we have a check mark where it identifies certain like area legal services, they'll be able to look at it and check mark it. That's what we're working on right now. And then the TAC, which is our protective orders, is on 18. We were spared from the typhoon. Unlike Annie, our building's adjacent to hers. We only had one area that got like ankle high flooded, but that was it. I do agree that we need to develop a plan, an after action plan, how we're going to handle it. I think as soon as we open doors, and we followed the judiciary as well, we opened doors as soon as the judiciary opened. We already had clients, and despite not having internet service power, we went ahead and allowed the intake process to happen because it's manual. But they did knock on our door as soon as they knew we were open. So it's something we're going to have to work on and address. And then we had a lot of clients calling in on like homebound services that we provide. So those are things that we want to also evaluate in the plan of action that we're going to have.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Annie?
Yeah, no, Carol.
I mean, sorry, Carol. Thank you, PJ.
Carol, I don't know if this is part of the grant requirement, but many of the senior citizens suffered a lot of damages and other problems. Are you assisting them, or is there another agency that is assisting them? What rights they have under FEMA and the other American Red Cross, etc.? and how to make the, and how you're able to assist them in making these applications? Are you considering that, or is that beyond your grant
Yes.
mandate?
We actually initially opened it up. So we did call Division of Senior Citizens, and we actually were assisting them in applying for FEMA. So that was the initial step we took. We joined in with public defenders. And then what we did afterwards was we went ahead and opened the services if they wanted to come here, because we knew the lines were like 4 hours long at the university or wherever the sites were. The initial, I think they started to open more sites and a lot more at the community center. So it kind of helped out to have them be able to go to different sites. But we did try to help them. And yes, we are going to try to assist them in those services as well. It's open because that's, that's of course a benefit that they're entitled to. So that's something we would assist them in. We can notify DSC that if they're having any issues with their application process, they can contact us.
Okay, is it possible to make that information available to the community?
Yes, we can do that, Your Honor.
Okay, appreciate it. Huh?
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, anything else? All right, if not, then we'll go to the next item on the agenda, which is the fiscal year 2024 budget review. And I guess, Steve, will you speak to that, or Mike? I don't know who.
Well, I would like to defer it to the admin director, acting admin director, Ms.
Oh,
Morgan.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I could speak, Chief Justice.
Oh,
But you guys can pipe in anytime I get something wrong. So we have some good news and bad news. The good news is we met with our OFB director, Steve Guerrero. They, I guess, meet with all the agencies before the budget hearing, which is the bad news. We're not going to have a budget hearing. They just accepted our submittal, and they're going to include it in the budget. And so we won't be able to defend our budget request at a public hearing, but at least we met with them. They didn't really have any concerns. We fixed our staffing pattern to show that the specialty pay would be cut out from our the base pay if the legislature passes the that pay parity bill. They didn't really have any questions. We just clarified that we're only asking for one additional FTE, a social worker, because ours is going to burn out because there's just so much work for her. And despite the increase in judges, right, we're going to do our best to manage all the courtrooms with the attorneys that we currently have. I mean, we have some vacancies anyways, right? We have basically one completely vacant attorney position. Then we have one attorney position that's filled with a retired attorney. And then we have one that's underfilled with a research attorney. So we can't even, once we get fully staffed, we think we'll be able to manage the 8th judge as well as the 2 magistrate judges and referee Ingalls. And so I think we also, part of the board packet is our revised staffing pattern showing those technical changes that we made. So I don't know if there were any other questions about our budget packet that you guys wanted answered.
No, I think we just wait and see, what happens. Obviously, we monitor when they go into session and start working on the budget line by line, so that we're kept abreast and can, continue to monitor what's going to happen and when they're coming up on the budget and the discussion that occurs. Unfortunately, the attorney pay raise bill that was introduced was set for a public hearing before the storm came, and then that got pushed back. And I don't know if you heard anything about, obviously that's not as high a priority right now based on, what's occurred and, some of the discussion on the funding, but at least the numbers, are those numbers you said remaining in the budget as is, or they're being characterized as a separate item? now.
Yeah, they said to just include it in the budget, but separate it as a specialty pay rather than affecting people's base pay, which is the way we initially presented it. So we had to make that correction to our staffing pattern. So you know how they have it, it's and we copied pretty much the attorney generals are doing that as well. They have the prosecutor base pay and then they have a separate column for the specialty pay,
And the specialty pays the 15%?
15%, yes.
Mm.
And
Yeah, but
so,
after passage, it's not gonna be really a specialty pay. It's gonna be added to the base pay. Right?
well, I think to mirror the prosecutors one, it should just remain a specialty pay, and then the legislature can decide whether or not they want to keep it.
But then that also makes it, because it was not all the lawyers in the Public Defender Service Corporation that
Yeah.
were being covered by that, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, well, it was mirrored to what the prosecutors are getting, so it's really just prosecutors that are getting it. So they it was drafted such that it would be applied to attorneys who are engaged in criminal defense. We're trying to propose an amendment that would include our attorneys who handle protective orders as well, because I don't really isn't that much of a difference. But that's an amendment that's going to have to be made on the floor.
Or you just exercise your discretion and implement it. And we try to, get it passed and then, make it as part of the budget request, which it is. And then, it's just a question of funding, right? I think what we need to do is, and we may have identified this before, is get the amount that is required. And then let's see where the budget heads in August, and maybe before the end of the fiscal year, depending on the amounts that are available and the budget that gets in there. We can look at, what about lapsed positions? Vacancies, because that was one of the big concerns. They were indicating if there's any position that's been vacant for longer than a year, that there's a high likelihood that position will be cut.
So we explained to them that all of the positions are in recruitment. At least the attorney ones are in recruitment. We do have we don't really have any empty FTEs. They're currently being filled by limited terms who are basically being trained up. So like we have legal secretary vacancy positions, but we've hired people who didn't qualify as legal secretaries. So we're paying them as legal clerks, and we're getting them trained up to become legal secretaries. So we're kind of paying them a lot less than we probably should. But everyone wins, right? It's like a training salary. And so we explained that to OFB, and they didn't seem to be that concerned about it.
Yeah, because obviously, they indicated to us that if there were any positions that were vacant for a significant period and didn't have LTEs or and just weren't filled or weren't in the process of recruitment, that they were in danger of being slashed. So you needed a warm body or an in recruitment associated with every vacancy. So that's one of the things that you've got to be certain about with them. Okay. All right. Any other questions for Steve about this?
Yeah, I just want to get just a clarification. Steve, since you're not going to be having a public hearing, did Steve Guerrero tell you that you could have an opportunity to speak to the legislature when they break down to committee as a whole?
So he said we could submit a written testimony. So that's our intention, is to submit written testimony, and which we thought we already had, but just in lieu of a public hearing. And so in case there are parts of the bill, the miscellaneous and administrative parts that we want to propose changes, like we obviously want to reaffirm support for the retired attorney bill. And then I'm going to reach out to Sarah and find out if there's anything else that we could testify in support of. Like I know that especially the electronic monitoring funding, we want to make sure that our testimony includes support for that as well. So I'll reach out to Sarah, find out if there's anything else Not that it
Yeah,
really,
because, the committee as a whole includes the whole legislature. So that if they have any questions, I like to have you and your staff be given the opportunity to answer any of those questions that were not answered during the public hearing.
okay, I will make sure, we'll ask them to invite us if they feel it's necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we'll now head to the next item on the agenda, which is the client income guidelines.
Mr. Chairman, do we still need to approve the budget proposal?
No, I think we approved it the last time
Okay, I
Yeah.
don't remember.
for transmittal to the legislature.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's reflected in the minutes, if I'm not mistaken. It was moved by you to approve, and it was seconded by Trustee Munya. Kanata. All right, Steve, are you gonna talk about the client income guidelines?
Yes, so we submitted a bunch of stuff for the packet. I'm sorry if you had to go through all of it. It's just a very complex issue, right? Of whether or not we just pick a percentage of the federal poverty guidelines and use that, right? So I just want to give you a little rundown. Like, for many states do rely on the federal poverty guideline, like Hawaii, you're eligible as long as your income is 150% below it. Alabama, you're eligible if you're under 200% of the federal poverty guideline. Colorado, it's 218%. Florida's less than 200%. Georgia's 150%. Idaho is 187% of the federal poverty guideline. Even Louisiana's 200%. And Massachusetts, you're only ineligible if you're more than 250% of the federal poverty guidelines. And this really only affects about 30 to 36 clients that we've turned away, but I don't know how many are screened at the magistrate level even before they get appointed to our office. So the way it works now is we try to represent anyone who's detained, whether they qualify or not, until hopefully after the magistrate hearing, if they get released and they're free to hire someone, and if they don't, then they'll have to try to hire someone from obviously behind bars. Our guidelines, and I think they're in the packet, right, were passed in 2011, and though that's about 200% above the federal poverty guidelines at that time. So the board back in 2011 adopted the 200%. Well, Cat Moylan, it's like 190%, 195%, about 195% of above the federal poverty guidelines. So if we decide to do that again, then the hourly rate would basically go from $10 an hour to about $14 an hour for a single individual, and the amount would be $29,348. If per a family of 3, it would be about 50,000. This is at 175% of Hawaii's federal poverty guideline. So they have 3 different federal poverty guidelines. They have one for the continental U.S., one for Hawaii, and one for Alaska. And so, that's just for, and I also included in the packet all the different percentages, right? There's that one chart that shows where be it 125, 150, 175%. Yeah, just a little irritating because you have to rotate your view. And so
Yeah.
those are just, that's just the basic guidelines. And then what the problem with our system is, there's no really ability to appeal it. And so we need to build in a system where they can demonstrate extraordinary expenses. Like if one of our clients, is diabetes and they're paying for medical care that reduces the actual money's available to them. And then things like we've disqualified people for having a car, but the car is the reason that they're able to work, right? And most times they don't even own the car. It's like the bank owns it, and they just running it from the bank until after 5 years, right? And so those are other things that we need to consider. So I mean, we're just
Well,
going to
it
try to.
doesn't, yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like there's any action that's going to be, or anything that's going to be ready for our action today. I think, the first thing I think we have to address is, I think there obviously should be a recommendation that public defender comes up with, from the management to the trustees, for the criteria that they suggest could be established, with the rationale for why that would be the case, and including, the basis for making that recommendation, and the standard. If you're going to look at the federal poverty guidelines from Hawaii as the factor for determining indigency and the percentage, then that should be explained, and why that is appropriate to look at that guideline, and the percentage that's being recommended. And then also any other criteria that you feel should be examined, and including, looking at the total number of persons in the family, the wage, similar to what was done back in 2014 with the adjustments, and then looking at, any special exceptions, as you pointed out, any repayment issue. I noticed that a lot of these surveys from the eligibility guidelines for assigned counsel also determined what was included in, and provided a definition of the income, and what the source of income was that was included, because that can make a big difference. For example, if public benefits are included or public benefits are not, if what does it mean? So I think those are things that need to be examined, because you put an hourly wage. Well, what if someone doesn't have an hourly wage within that, but there are other provisions that constitute income or assets, as is shown on here, right? You have the household assets per person. So I think you have to come up with that, and go through, set up the full chart of what's being recommended, why, what the rationale is. And then I think when that's ready to go, I would suggest that we also look at perhaps getting some comment, getting some public feedback, not only from the Bar Association, but even generally from the public at large, that the public defender is looking at revising its indigent defense guidelines. One of the things that I was trying to look at was, do you know where the duty is, Steve, under the statute for coming up with the criteria and determining whether the services of the corporation are appropriate?
Well, no, I think it's supposed to be the subject to the rules of the board. The court.
Well, I actually looked at the statute, and under section 11104, it talks about the determination of whether a defendant is indigent and whether his case gets referred is at the discretion of the judge before whom the defendant is appearing, but the corporation can assist the judges in establishing criteria for determining when the services are appropriate. So I think that if that's the genesis for the recommendation and the establishment of criteria, I think we go through that, and then we once we get the feedback, once we agree, once the trustees approve, then we go to the next step in terms of providing that information for to the court, and ensuring that the court is comfortable with the rules, and then looking for the Supreme Court also to work with the judges at a robes meeting, and ensure that there's at least a standard in the criteria that will be examined by them in evaluating whether a case is going to be referred to the corporation.
DJ, there's also the ABA standards for criminal justice providing defense services, standard 5 to 7.1, eligibility for assistance. So there's also some set standards with the ABA. that we
Right,
can
but,
look at.
and you can look at that as another basis if you want to, in terms of the recommendations for the criteria that you want to, because the corporation is statutory authorized to assist judges in establishing the criteria for the determining when the services are appropriate. So I think we can do that, and looking at whatever criteria you want to, and making a recommendation with the rationale for it. So I know we've been bouncing this around for a while, and obviously I think it's somewhat time sensitive. You've been pointing out that it hasn't been revised for more than 10 years. And clearly there are significant changes, both in terms of what the poverty guidelines were that were back in 2014 versus today, and other changes in the marketplace.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely prioritize it. But it just, once you start diving into it, you realize this isn't just as easy as picking a federal poverty guideline. It's very
No,
complex.
it is, but I think, the
But
fact
it's
that
worth
it's complex shouldn't
tackling.
deter you.
Yeah.
And
No,
you
I know.
just have to go forward. Otherwise we can stagnate forever until we study it, right?
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
think we just have to come up with the recommendation. Management has to decide with a justification for why they did what they did and why they believe this is appropriate. The board can review it, understand the rationale, and then it goes to the next step, because it doesn't end with just the establishment of the criteria by the PDSC.
Totally agree. So we already have a proposed table and a set of guidelines. So we'll make
I
sure
recommend you circulate that in advance of the next meeting then.
okay.
That's not in this packet right now, right?
No.
Yeah, I recommend you circulate that, in advance of the next meeting. And most importantly, sort of a narrative explaining why the decisions were made to come up with these guidelines and why you feel they're appropriate, so that the board is armed with the information it needs to make a decision, and can also advocate for them when it gets transmitted to the judiciary.
Yeah, and I love the idea about public comment. So we'll figure out a way we can do that, whether it's
I think that it's important to get the comments from the bar and the public, quite frankly. PJ, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think you've covered the income status well. I'm also concerned about what is included as a member of the family. Is it the traditional family, parents, the children, or does it include, because many families, they have kids that they just raised, but are not legally theirs. Are they included in the members of the family? And also, we know that many of the family members also take care of invalid members of their family, such as parents or aunts and uncles, etc. So I like to know what the criteria of what is included as a member of the family. Because if this is just a traditional, where it includes mom and pop and the kids, it doesn't really reflect the present community of what we define as family on Guam. So I like to make it reflect the kind of family that is accepted here on the island, which includes extended families, take care of invalid parents or aunts or uncles, brothers or sisters, etc.
Okay, we'll be sure to include that in the definition. No, I totally agree, because you might not be legally obligated to pay for your parents' care, but morally, right? So that should be included in the household.
Yeah, especially if they're invalid already and they're bedridden, and the person is taking care of the parents. Because I see a number of people say, but I'm taking care of my mom who's bedridden, and I can't afford to get a lawyer. because they don't qualify for the guideline, the requirements of the guidelines. So I like to maybe include that element of the requirements.
Thank you.
I think many of the jurisdictions look at a person's dependent family. So, and, you know, within that, so if a person is obviously dependent on the individual, you know, same household or the like, I think my understanding is many of the jurisdictions recognize that, that, you know, the person, the family member who is dependent on support from them. But, you know, whether there's a more expansive definition beyond that, you know, those are the things that you need to look at and recommend.
Okay, great.
I mean, the situation PJ's talking about in almost all circumstances is it's someone who is dependent on the individual who's seeking eligibility. All right. Okay, thank you. Now, is there, now we go back to the agenda and any new business? Nothing? Any public discussion or any correspondence? All right, if not, then can I enter? Yes? Somebody? No? Can I entertain a motion to adjourn? And our next meeting will be on August 22nd at 12:30.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, move to adjourn until August 22nd at 12:30.
All right, is there a second? Dr. Whitman?
I second. Thank you.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
There
Aye.
being no objection, the Board of Trustees meeting for the Public Defender Service Corporation will now stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank
have a good day,
you.
everyone.
Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.